Hey y'all, and welcome to today's video. I'm going to be taking you through the day with me and showing you what my day looks like. I'm going to do all of the homemaker things that I've got to do for the day. Every day does not look the same, but this is a pretty good representation of what my days are looking like now that we have a lot of things coming in from the garden. We recently went camping, and when we got back, the garden had lots of gifts to give us, and we're going to preserve those today. I started out the day by going out to the garden before it got too hot and doing some of my outside morning chores. And if you've been around here, then you know that we had an issue with something getting some of our chickens. Well, when we got back from our camping trip, a raccoon had gotten into our corn. And so it makes me feel pretty confident that that's what was getting the chickens also. And we're going to take care of that. But you can see where the raccoon was eating on the corn. These are our pumpkins. They're looking beautiful, so I wanted to show those to you. I'm going to go ahead and go do my morning chicken chores. I had some scraps to take out to the big chickens, to our laying hens, and our rooster. And then I'm also going to check and make sure everybody has plenty of water because it's really hot right now. And I'm also going to feed the meat chickens. They get feed a little more often, so they get fed their feed morning and night, where the laying hens get scraps in the morning and their feed at night. So I needed to go ahead and feed the meat birds, and again, make sure they had water. Theirs needed to be filled up. These meat birds have grown so much so fast. Being gone for a few days, when we came back, it was a little shocking at how much they had changed in just those few days. So my barefooted pajama wearing helper, we were going to go ahead and fill up the water for the meat chickens and get that back to them so that they had plenty of water for the day. We were talking about how the sun had heated up the water that was in the water hose, and just got to spend a little time outside together this morning. Then I went over to the melon patch. It's out there by the meat chickens, and was checking out some things. We have some beautiful cantaloupes that are almost ready. We had some melons, some of those French melons that over ripened while we were out of town. So I was pulling those off the vine and setting them to the side so that the chickens could enjoy those. And I found a few that were very nice and ripe, and I could take them in the house and cut them up for us. I also wanted to go ahead and get started on dinner. So when I got back in the house, I got started on dinner. We're going to have pinto beans among some other things that you'll get to see later on in the video. And I like to cook my pinto beans in the crock pot all day. So I'm getting those started with some bacon grease and some Italian seasoning, garlic powder, salt, and pepper. And I like to cook those on high for a couple of hours and then turn them down to low and let them cook all day. I wanted to set up the camera and share this busy day with you because I think one thing we can all relate to is that we have days, regardless of what your days look like in comparison to mine. I think we can all relate to the fact that we have days that feel overwhelming and we have days that are hard. We have days where all of our tasks that we have before us feel like they're just too much, and we would much rather ignore them and not deal with it. But that's not what we're called to do. And y'all, I almost took this clip out, but I wanted to include it because I want to be able to go back and look on it, look on that precious baby smile. We were taking a little impromptu dance break, but that precious smile, y'all, it does my heart good. Y'all, we are called to take care of the task in our home, and Proverbs 31 tells us that that's our job, to take care of the affairs of our home and not eat the bread of idleness, even though some days that will seem so tempting. Some days it will seem so much easier to just walk away from those duties and just leave them. It's not what we're called to do. Now, I'm all for days of rest, and I'm all for prioritizing and setting out your goals and what you'd like to get accomplished and being very realistic about it and giving yourself grace. But we need to work. We need to work for our homes, and we need to work for our families. We need to work for the Lord. One of the first things that we wanted to get going in the canner were these green beans. These actually came from my pawpaw's garden, and he had already broke these and washed them which helped tremendously. And what a blessing it is to be able to can these and preserve them and put them in the pantry for our family. But that's one of the first things that I wanted to get started because I knew I could have those going in the canner and I could work on some other things in the kitchen. When I have things going in the pressure canner, I try to be very present and watching it, but still working on other things. So we're getting this first batch of beans going in the canner. We actually run through 2 batches of beans in the canner, and then while those are going, you'll get to see us work on something else. It's also easy to get caught up in thinking that the tasks around our home aren't important, that it's just mundane things that we do day after day and that they're not important. But I'm here to tell you that they are. Going back to Proverbs 31, it runs through all the list of things that this woman is taking care of, the things that she's doing for her family and for her home. And then it says, many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. That goes to show you that what we're doing in our home and the way that we're taking care of our family, those things are the most important. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't work outside of the home if that's what you feel called to, if that's where your conviction is. I've worked outside of the home and I know what it's like to go to work and then come home and feel like you still have to take care of all of those quote unquote mundane tasks. But what I'm telling you is that those things that we do, those things that we take care of in our home, the washing of clothes, cooking meals, raising children, those things are the most important job we could have. So don't take them lightly and do those tasks with great pride in them and know that you're doing them with love for your family and love for the Lord, because it's a very important job that you've been called to, a very important job that's been placed in front of you. Audrey is helping me in the kitchen on this day. In case you're new, she is my daughter. And that helped me out tremendously because there was a lot to get done. And she has a very helping heart and she's always willing and ready to help. And she knew that I could use that on this day. So that helped me a lot. And it also gave me the opportunity to teach her some of these skills. I enjoy spending time in the kitchen with her and she helped me tremendously to get things done. We're working on some pickle relish now. We had tons of cucumbers. Y'all saw that great big bag of cucumbers. Tons of cucumbers to pick when we came home from our camping trip. And so we're going to preserve some of those by making pickle relish. I've already made a batch a few days back. I guess it's been about a week or so back now. And we're going to make another batch to add to that. When you've got all the cucumbers, you make all the things. So this gave us something to do in the kitchen while the beans were in the canner. We could keep an eye on the canner and still be working on something. And yes, we chopped all of those cucumbers and onions by hand. I used to have a food processor, but it gave out on me. So we cut them all by hand and it took a little bit longer, but like I said, thankful that I had a helper and we got it done. These also needed to sit for an hour or two with some salt on them. It will pull all the moisture out of the cucumber. And so that was another reason why we wanted to go ahead and get this done so that it could be sitting and doing its thing for a little while. I'm also going to be cleaning up a little bit, tidying up as I go. If you've had these days where you're spending a lot of time in the kitchen, you've got a lot to do, you know that the things can add up quickly. And if you don't stay on top of it, not only will you not have some of the items that you need when it comes time to use them, but at the end of the day, there will be an overwhelming amount of things to clean up. So I like to try to stay on top of it as I'm going. That way I have the things I need. Like I'm going to need this cutting board and knife again in just a minute. So I'll have the things that I need to use. And at the end of the day, there will not just be a ton of things to take care of all at one time. I'm also washing the jars that we're going to put the pickle relish in. These were some older jars, so I needed to give them a good scrubbing. I think they've been sitting outside and needed to check and make sure there were no cracks or anything like that. And now our first batch of beans are done in the canner, so we're going to crack that open. All the pressure has come down and we can open this up. Y'all, every time I open this pressure canner, especially with green beans, the smell, it reminds me of my mama and papa's house, and it takes me right back to my childhood. I grew up with the privilege of being able to spend a lot of time with mama and papa and in their kitchen. Their neighbors would come and everybody would get involved when it was time to can and preserve all the things coming in from the garden. And they allowed me to be involved in that from a very early age. You can see here I'm getting that second batch of green beans going in the pressure canner. But they allowed me to be involved in those things from a very early age. I'm talking very, very little, probably like my Wyatt's age, sitting there and breaking beans, even though I was probably taking a whole bean and just breaking it in half. They let me be involved from, as early as I possibly could. And then as I got older, they allowed me to be involved in more and more things, to be in the kitchen with them, to be doing the canning with them, until eventually, my mom was sitting there watching me do it and guiding me and teaching me how to do it myself. Uh, and I'm so thankful for that and thankful to have that skill that they taught me. I'm getting some laundry going as well. We did a little bit of laundry while we were camping, but I still had a ton to do. So in the midst of doing all the things in the kitchen, I would get some laundry going as well. I think I did 4 loads of laundry throughout the day, washing it and then drying it, folding it, and putting it away. Those peppers there came from our garden. They were ready when we got back, but I don't have quite enough to preserve those the way that I want to. I'm going to make some cowboy candy with those, and I know I'll have some more ready in a few days, so I'll wash those up and put those in the refrigerator until it's time to do something else with them. These are those melons that I picked this morning. Like I said, some of them were on the verge of being too ripe, but y'all, they're great. They're fantastic, and they are delicious. I would cut a few pieces and put it in the bowl, and then we would eat a few pieces. And then a few pieces would go in the bowl and we would eat a few pieces. They're so good. Talking about Mama and Papa's house, I guess I'm a little bit nostalgic today, but they always had mushmelon in the refrigerator. They always had something in the refrigerator that we could eat with a meal, that we could snack on. This time of year when the melons were coming in, there was always melon cut up in the refrigerator. I had brought 3 of these melons in from the garden this morning, and I'm cutting up 2 of them and putting them in the refrigerator for us to snack on. I'm showing you there how beautiful these are. And then the other one I'm going to set aside so I can give it to my mom. And that way, if they want to try it, they can. These were actually a new to us melon that we grew this year, and they're delicious. You'll get to see here a clip of that beautiful bowl of that nice orange color. Back to the pickle relish now. This had sat for a couple of hours. I had a lot of liquid that salt had pulled off, and I drained that liquid. And now we're going to work on putting our other ingredients in it, our vinegar, our seasonings. And I will link the recipe that I've been using for my pickle relish down in the description box in case it's something that you're interested in making. It's a great way to use up that bounty of cucumbers. Something that I'm going to be doing through the month of August is being intentional about preserving something every day. Now, every day will not look like this day where I'm spending all day in the kitchen doing all the canning, all the preserving, all the freezing, and just spending the whole day in the kitchen. But some days will. And then other days will just look like cooking a little extra at dinner time and putting a meal away in the freezer, or running the dehydrator while I'm going about other things throughout the day. Regardless, I'm going to be intentional about preserving something every day, and I'll encourage you to do that along with me. Now, the way I do it doesn't have to look like the way you do it, and the way you do it doesn't have to look like the way I do it, but I think at the end of the month, we will be very thankful for every little bit that we put away. Jessica at Three Rivers Homestead hosts this challenge every year, encouraging people that every little bit counts, and if you put something away every day at the end of the month of August, you'll have a lot of food put away for your family. So I'm going to take part in that this year, and I encourage you to set up some form of that for yourself as well. Here's a clip of all that beautiful relish and the green beans, all the things that we got canned up in the pressure canner and the water bath canner on this day. Next up is these pink-eyed purple whole peas. And we picked these when we got home the day before, and Justin and Audrey helped me shell them. And I had kind of thought I would just put them in the refrigerator because I knew in a few days I would have more to pick. And I thought I'll just put them in the refrigerator. I'll add the others to it and I'll can them when I have a little bit more. But then I decided I wanted to freeze them. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm washing them really well. I have a little bit of a husk type coating on them that I like to wash off and pick out any little pieces of the shell that might have gotten in there with them. So I'm washing them really good, and then I'm going to blanch them in some boiling water for just a couple of minutes, then move them over to an ice bath, and then from there I'll freeze them. We love pink eye purple whole peas. This is actually the first batch that I'm putting away for later because we have been eating fresh pretty much all of them that we have picked. We love them. They're some of my favorites. This is where I'm realizing that I don't have any freezer bags. I did not have any quart size freezer bags, which is what I intended on putting these in. So I pulled out some containers that we'll put them in the freezer, and that'll be just fine. It'll work. There they go in the boiling water, getting every last pea because those were shelled with a lot of love and you don't want to miss not a single one. I drained the hot water off, put them in the ice water to cool them down and stop the cooking. I'm going to drain that off, and then I'll move them into my containers to go in the freezer. I have to say it was really fun coming home from being gone for a few days to see all that the garden had to give, because we went through and made sure things were picked and everything was so before we left. And so to see all of that had grown just in those few days was really neat. When it went out and we had flowers to pick, we had the peas to pick, we had corn to pick, we had okra to pick, we had cucumbers to pick, we had tomatoes, we had all of these beautiful things that the garden had given us while we were away. It was like a welcome home gift. I'm so happy to see you. Speaking of the okra, I did that like I did my jalapenos. I knew they would be more ready in a few days, and so I washed it and put it in the refrigerator. That way it's there and I can pull it back out. Matter of fact, it's what I'm going to be doing today. Today that I'm doing my voiceover, I'm going to be pulling that out, getting some extra okra to add with that and preserve it. And after I got all of those things taken care of, it was time to shift my focus back to dinner. We already got the pinto beans going in the crock pot. They've been going all day long, but I wanted to make some cornbread and put some corn on to boil. So working on my cornbread, and yes, I put a little bit of brown sugar and a little bit of syrup in my cornbread. It's how I like it. I know some people are very strict with it being, your cornmeal, maybe an egg and some milk, and that's it. That's cornbread. And sometimes I do make it that way because that's actually how Justin prefers it. But sometimes I add in the sugar and the syrup because that's how I prefer it. For dinner, we had a yummy southern plate full of corn on the cob, cornbread, and pinto beans. And I have some homemade chow chow that we canned last year and some mayonnaise on my pinto beans because that's how I like to eat them. Audrey went out and did the afternoon chores outside for me. Sometimes I go out and do them. Sometimes the kids will go out and do them. She went out and did them on this day, and she brought in 8 eggs. We had a little spell where our chickens were not laying eggs. We made some changes. I'm going to talk about those in an upcoming video, but now we're getting plenty of eggs again. It's time to hang up the apron and be done for the day. Thank y'all for being here and spending some time with me. It really does give me a little extra motivation to bring you along, so thank you. I love you. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.